3 years had passed since the day the aliens came. Dr. Amy Collins crawled through the narrow tunnel, her hands bleeding from sharp rocks. The air was thick with dust that made her cough, but she kept moving. Above her, the sound of alien machinery echoed through the mountain. Amy had once been Earth's leading scientist, working on faster-than-light travel in a clean laboratory. Now she was slave number 4147 in the uranium mines of Kepler 442b. The aliens had turned the beautiful colony world into a giant mining operation, stripping away everything valuable and leaving only holes in the ground. The Zephyrians kept humans alive because they were useful. Human hands were small enough to work in tight spaces where the alien machines couldn't reach. Human bodies could survive in dangerous areas where the aliens didn't want to risk their own people. It was a hard life, but it was still life. Amy reached the end of the tunnel and began digging out uranium ore with her bare hands. The radioactive rocks would be processed into fuel for the alien ships. Every day she helped her captors become stronger while her own people grew weaker. But Amy was learning things too. She watched the alien overseers and their technology. She studied how their machines worked and what made them strong. The aliens thought humans were just smart animals, so they didn't bother hiding their secrets. That was their first mistake. The Zephyrian energy weapons used a crystal matrix to focus power. Their shields worked by bending energy around their ships. Their computers were incredibly fast, but followed predictable patterns. Amy memorized everything she saw, storing the information in her mind like pieces of a puzzle. On the other side of the mining complex, Carl Watson was planning something dangerous. The former Marine had lost his family when Earth burned, and the anger inside him had never cooled. He led a small group of humans who refused to give up hope. "Tonight we hit the supply convoy," Carl whispered to his team during the meal break. "They're moving weapons through Sector 7. If we can steal even one alien rifle, we can arm 10 more people." The plan was simple but deadly. The Zephyrians moved supplies at night when most humans were locked in their sleeping areas. Carl's team had been digging escape tunnels for months, creating ways to move through the complex without being seen. When darkness fell, 12 humans crawled through hidden passages toward the convoy route. They had no weapons except tools stolen from the mines. Against aliens with energy shields and plasma weapons, it seemed like suicide. The convoy consisted of 3 floating platforms loaded with supplies. 2 Zephyrian guards walked alongside, their crystal armor gleaming in the moonlight. They moved with the confidence of beings who had never been challenged by their slaves. Carl's signal was a thrown rock. As it clattered across the ground, his team attacked from all directions. The guards were surprised but reacted quickly, raising their weapons. Energy blasts lit up the night as humans scattered for cover. One human fell, then another. But Carl managed to tackle a guard from behind, wrestling for control of the alien's weapon. The rifle was heavy and warm, covered in symbols he couldn't read. But the trigger was obvious enough. The energy beam cut through the second guard's armor like paper. The alien fell, bright blue blood pooling beneath its body. Carl's team quickly loaded the stolen supplies onto human backs and disappeared into the tunnels. By morning, 12 humans had become 20 as word spread about the successful raid. The stolen alien weapons were studied and copied as best they could manage. It wasn't much, but it was a start. Far away in the asteroid belt, Jake Morrison was building something much bigger. The hidden base called Sanctuary 1 had grown from a single damaged ship to a small fleet. Humans arrived daily, refugees from destroyed worlds who had somehow escaped the alien patrols. "Report," Jake said as he entered the main briefing room. "Lieutenant." Dan Foster stood at attention. The young pilot had been fighting aliens for 3 years, and it showed in his scarred face and hard eyes. "We've established contact with resistance cells on 7 worlds, sir. The aliens are spread thin trying to control everything they've conquered." Jake studied the star map on the wall. Red dots marked alien-controlled systems, while green dots showed known human hiding places. There were so few green dots. "What? About supplies? We're getting better at raiding their convoys. The aliens use predictable routes, and their ships are designed for fighting other fleets, not hunting small groups. We've captured enough alien technology to start understanding how it works." Engineer Kate Miller joined the briefing, her hands stained with alien metal. "Sir, I've been studying the captured power cores. Their technology is incredibly advanced, but it's not magic. We can learn to copy it, maybe even improve on it." Jake felt something he hadn't experienced in 3 years: hope. "How long before we can build ships that can fight them?" "Give me 2 years, sir. Maybe less if we can capture more alien equipment." The meeting was interrupted by an urgent message from the communications center. Captain Lisa Barnes's face appeared on the screen, broadcasting from her hidden base near Jupiter. "Jake, we've got big news. Amy Collins escaped from the mining world and made it to our station. She's got intelligence about the alien command structure that you need to hear." Amy appeared on the screen, looking thin and tired, but alive. Her eyes burned with the same fire that drove all the survivors. "Commander Morrison, I've been studying them for 3 years. The Zephyrians aren't as invincible as they seem. Their whole fleet is controlled by a central artificial intelligence. If we can find that AI and destroy it, we can cripple their entire military." Jake leaned forward. "Where's this AI located?" "On their command ship, something they call the Nexus Prime. It's a massive vessel that stays in the center of their fleet formations. Take out that ship, and the rest of their forces will be blind and confused." The room fell silent as everyone considered what Amy was suggesting. Attack the most heavily defended ship in the alien fleet with whatever small vessels they could. Build. It seemed impossible. But Jake had learned something important in 3 years of hiding. Impossible was just another word for difficult. Humans had survived the worst defeat in their history. They had built hidden bases and resistance networks. They had learned to steal alien technology and turn it against their captors. "How many ships do we have now?" he asked Dan Foster. 43 vessels of various types, sir. Most are converted civilian ships with stolen alien weapons. Not much against their entire fleet." Jake stood up and looked at the star map again. Somewhere out there, the Nexus Prime was controlling the ships that had destroyed his civilization. Somewhere out there, billions of humans were working as slaves for the creatures that had burned their worlds. "Then we build more ships. he said simply. "We steal more technology, we train more pilots, and when we're ready, we're going to hit them so hard they'll never recover." Amy smiled for the first time in 3 years. "I've got plans for a computer. Virus that could help with that, sir. Something that will turn their greatest strength into their greatest weakness. The war wasn't over. In fact, it was just beginning." Commander Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the USS Liberty, watching the stars through the main window. The year was 2387, and humanity had built homes on 12 different star systems. Earth was the center of it all, with colonies spreading out like branches on a great tree. Jake had been protecting these colonies for 15 years, and he had never seen anything like what appeared on his screens that morning. "Sir, we have unknown contacts coming out of hyperspace," said Lieutenant Chen at the sensor station. Her voice was calm, but Jake could hear the worry underneath. "They're big, sir. Really big." Jake walked over to look at the readings. The numbers made no sense. The ships appearing near Earth were massive, bigger than anything humans had ever built. Their energy signatures were off the charts, showing power levels that seemed impossible. "How many ships?" Jake asked. "Still counting, sir. At least 50, maybe more. They're using some kind of technology we've never seen before." Jake felt his stomach drop. The Liberty was Earth's most advanced warship, equipped with the best weapons and shields humanity could build. But looking at these readings, he knew they were facing something far beyond their capabilities. "Open a channel to Earth Command," he ordered, "and send alerts to all defense stations." The main screen flickered to life, showing Admiral Carter in Earth Command's war room. The older man's face was grim as he looked at the same sensor data. "Jake, we're seeing them too. These aren't any ships in our databases. Where did they come from?" "Unknown, sir. They just appeared out of nowhere. Should we try to make contact?" Before Admiral Carter could answer, the alien ships began moving toward Earth. They moved in perfect formation, like a swarm of deadly insects. Their ships were made of some kind of crystal material that seemed to bend light around them. All ships. "This is Earth Command," Admiral Carter's voice came over the fleet communications. "Unknown vessels are approaching Earth. All defense platforms are to power up weapons and shields. This is not a drill." Jake watched as Earth's orbital defense platforms came online. Massive gun platforms that had protected humanity for decades began charging their weapons. Space stations moved into defensive positions. Everything humanity had built to protect their home world was ready for battle. The alien ships didn't slow down. They didn't try to communicate. They just kept coming. "Sir, they're powering weapons," Lieutenant Chen reported. "Energy readings are incredible. I've never seen anything like this." The first shots came without warning. Beams of pure energy shot out from the alien ships, hitting Earth's defense platforms. The platforms that had seemed so strong and powerful were destroyed in seconds. Explosions lit up space around Earth like deadly fireworks. "Return fire!" Jake shouted. "All ships! Engage the enemy!" The Liberty's weapons fired at the nearest alien ship. The plasma cannons that could destroy mountains hit the alien vessel's shields and just bounced off. It was like throwing rocks at a mountain. The alien ship didn't even slow down. "Our weapons aren't doing anything," the weapons officer reported. "Their shields are absorbing everything we throw at them." Jake watched in horror as the alien fleet tore through Earth's defenses like they were made of paper. Ships that had taken years to build were destroyed in minutes. The Luna base, humanity's first settlement off Earth, sent out a desperate call for help before going silent forever. "Jake, we're pulling back." Admiral Carter's voice crackled over the radio. "Earth Command is under attack. We can't hold them." The aliens showed no mercy. They didn't want to capture Earth or negotiate with humans. They wanted to destroy everything. Cities on Earth's surface began exploding as alien weapons fired from orbit. Billions of people who had been living peaceful lives were suddenly fighting for survival. Captain Lisa Barnes was stationed on Ceres 7, a mining station in the asteroid belt. She watched the battle through her station's sensors, tears running down her face as she saw humanity's greatest achievement being torn apart. "Captain, we're receiving escape pods from Earth," her communications officer said. "Hundreds of them." "Help them," Lisa ordered. "Bring in every pod we can." But even the escape pods weren't safe. The alien ships sent out smaller craft that hunted down the fleeing humans like wolves chasing sheep. Most of the pods were destroyed before they could reach safety. Jake Morrison made the hardest decision of his life. He could see that fighting these aliens in open battle was suicide. Humanity's weapons couldn't hurt them, and their technology was hundreds of years more advanced. "All ships, this is Commander Morrison," he broadcast to the remaining human fleet. "We're pulling back to the outer system. Don't try to fight them head-on. We need to survive so we can fight another day." Some captains wanted to stay and fight to the death. Others followed Jake's orders and retreated to the asteroid belts and gas giant moons. It felt like running away, but Jake knew it was the only way to keep some humans alive. Mars Colony sent out its final transmission just as the alien ships reached the Red Planet. "This is Mars Central. They're here. Tell our families we fought to the end. Tell them we—" The signal cut off in static. In one day, humanity's golden age ended. 12 star systems with billions of people were conquered or destroyed. The aliens, who would later be known as the Zephyrians, had won a total victory. But scattered among the asteroids and hidden moons, small groups of humans survived. Jake Morrison sat in his captain's chair as the Liberty hid behind a large asteroid. His ship was damaged, his crew was scared, and his civilization was in ruins. But he was still alive, and as long as humans were alive, there was hope. "Sir, what do we do now?" Lieutenant Chen asked quietly. Jake looked at the stars where Earth used to shine. "Now we learn everything we can about these aliens, and then we make them pay for what they've done." The asteroid field beyond Neptune was cold and dark, perfect for hiding humanity's greatest secret. Jake Morrison floated in zero gravity, watching through the observation window as another ship took shape in the construction bay. The USS Retribution gleamed under the work lights, its hull a mixture of human engineering and stolen alien technology. 2 years had passed since Amy Collins brought her intelligence about the Nexus Prime. In that time, the hidden fleet had grown, from 43 ships to over 100. But Jake knew that quantity alone wouldn't win this war. They needed ships that could match alien technology, and Kate Miller had finally figured out how to build them. "The power cores are stable," Kate reported as she drifted up beside him. Her engineering team had spent months learning to work with alien crystal matrices. "We can generate about 60% of a Zephyrian ship's power output, but our ships are smaller and faster. That gives us an advantage." Jake studied the Retribution's sleek lines. The ship looked nothing like the old human designs with their blocky armor and obvious weapon ports. This vessel was built for speed and stealth, capable of striking hard and disappearing before the enemy could respond. "How many more can we build?" "We have materials for 12 more ships this size, plus maybe 30 smaller vessels. After that, we'll need to capture more alien equipment." In the fighter bay, Lieutenant Dan Foster was training the next generation of human pilots. These young men and women had never seen Earth before its destruction, but they carried their parents' anger in their hearts. They practiced attack runs in captured Zephyrian fighters, learning to use alien technology against its creators. Remember, their targeting systems expect large, slow targets, Dan explained to his squadron. "We're small and fast. Use that advantage. Hit them where they don't expect it and get out before they can lock on to you." Pilot Sarah Kim raised her hand. She was 19 years old and had been flying stolen alien ships for 6 months. "Sir, what if their shields adapt to our weapons?" "Then we change our weapons. Amy's been working on that problem." In the research section of the base, Dr. Amy Collins was indeed working on weapons. But her most dangerous creation wasn't a gun or a missile. It was a computer program designed to destroy the alien artificial intelligence that controlled their fleet. "The virus is ready," she told Jake during their daily briefing. "I've tested it on captured alien computers, and it works perfectly. The problem is getting close enough to upload it to the Nexus Prime." Jake looked at the tactical displays showing alien patrol routes and fleet positions. The Zephyrian command ship was always surrounded by dozens of escort vessels. Getting within computer link range would require breaking through the heaviest defenses in their fleet. "We'll make our own opportunity," he said. "What about the resistance cells on the occupied worlds?" Communications Officer Tony Reeves pulled up reports from across the galaxy. "Carl Watson's group on Kepler 442b now has over 300 fighters. Captain Barnes reports similar numbers on the other mining worlds. They're ready to coordinate uprisings when we attack." The plan was taking shape in Jake's mind. A direct assault on the Nexus Prime would be suicide, but a coordinated attack from multiple directions might work. If the resistance cells struck at the same time as the orbital assault, the aliens would be fighting on dozens of fronts at once. "How long before the fleet is ready?" Kate consulted her construction schedules. 6 weeks for the major vessels. The smaller ships can be ready in 4 weeks. Then we attack in 6 weeks. Send coded messages to all resistance cells. Tell them to prepare for the final operation. While Jake planned the attack, the resistance fighters were already striking at alien installations. Carl Watson led his expanded army in a raid on the main processing plant on Kepler 442b. 300 humans armed with stolen weapons moved through the night like ghosts. The aliens had grown careless after 3 years of easy conquest. Their guard posts were lightly defended, and their patrols followed predictable routes. Carl's forces hit 6 targets simultaneously, destroying fuel depots and communication arrays before disappearing back into the underground tunnels. "They're getting desperate," Carl told his lieutenants as they counted their captured weapons. "The aliens are bringing in reinforcements from other systems. That means fewer ships protecting their main fleet." Similar raids were happening across the occupied worlds. Humans who had been treated like animals for 3 years were remembering what it meant to fight back. Every successful attack made them bolder and brought more people to the resistance. But the aliens were learning too. Zephyrian commanders began using harsher methods to control their human slaves. Entire settlements were destroyed when the aliens suspected resistance activity. The price of rebellion was measured in thousands of innocent lives. Amy Collins received reports of the reprisals with a heavy heart. Every human who died was someone she might have saved if she worked faster. But she knew that giving up now would mean permanent slavery for the survivors. "The virus is more than ready," she told Jake. "I've added new components that will spread through their entire network. Once it's uploaded, every Zephyrian computer system will be compromised." "What kind of effects are we talking about?" "Complete breakdown of their command structure. Ships will lose navigation, weapons control, even life support." "But Jake, there's something else I discovered while studying their databases." Amy pulled up files she had decoded from captured alien computers. The information was disturbing and changed everything they thought they knew about their enemies. "The Zephyrians aren't conquerors by choice. They're refugees running from something called the Devourers. Their home galaxy was completely destroyed, and they believe conquering us was necessary for their survival." Jake stared at the data in shock. "Are you saying they had a good reason for attacking us?" "I'm saying they were terrified. That doesn't excuse what they did, but it explains why they showed no mercy. They thought it was either us or them." The revelation was troubling, but it didn't change the current situation. Humanity was still enslaved, and billions of people were still dead. The Zephyrians had made their choice when they decided to destroy rather than negotiate. "It doesn't matter why they came," Jake said finally. "What matters is what we do now. And right now, we're going to free our people and take back our worlds." In the construction bays, work continued around the clock. Human welders and alien robots worked side by side, creating vessels that combined the best of both technologies. The fleet that was taking shape represented more than military power. It was proof that humans could adapt and overcome any challenge. The Retribution was the crown jewel of this new fleet, fast enough to outrun alien interceptors, tough enough to survive in heavy combat, and armed with weapons that could punch through Zephyrian shields. Jake had chosen it as his flagship for the coming battle. "Sir, we're receiving a priority message from Earth System," Communications Officer Reeves reported. The message was from Maria Rodriguez, a reconnaissance specialist who had volunteered for the most dangerous mission of all. She had infiltrated the alien command center on Europa to gather intelligence about Zephyrian fleet movements. "Commander Morrison, I've got the information you need. The Nexus Prime will be in Earth orbit in exactly 5 weeks for a major fleet. Review. Most of their ships will be concentrated in one location. It's the perfect opportunity for an attack." Jake smiled grimly. After 3 years of hiding and planning, Humanity was finally ready to strike back. The Zephyrians had won the first battle through superior technology and overwhelming force, but they were about to learn that humans fought best when they had nothing left to lose. "All ships, prepare for departure," he announced to the fleet. "We're going home." Sergeant Maria Rodriguez pressed herself against the ice wall, listening to alien voices echoing through the tunnel ahead. Europa, Jupiter's frozen moon, had become a major Zephyrian communication hub after the conquest. The aliens used its deep ice caves to house their most sensitive equipment, thinking the location was too remote for human interference. They were wrong. Maria had volunteered for this mission, knowing she probably wouldn't survive. Getting to Europa required stealing a small alien transport and flying past dozens of patrol ships. Landing without being detected meant using caves that could collapse at any moment. But the intelligence she could gather here was worth the risk. "Control, this is Ghost Team," she whispered into her radio. "I'm inside the main communication complex, beginning data collection." The response came from Jake Morrison himself, broadcasting from the hidden fleet. "Copy, Ghost Team. Remember, we need everything about their fleet movements and command protocols. Take your time and stay safe." Maria almost laughed at that last part. Nothing about this mission was safe. But Jake was right about taking time. The information she gathered here would determine whether humanity's revenge succeeded or failed completely. The communication center was a marvel of alien technology. Crystalline computers processed data from across the galaxy, coordinating the movements of thousands of ships. Holographic displays showed real-time positions of every Zephyrian vessel, including the massive Nexus Prime that controlled them all. Maria attached Amy Collins' data collection device to the main computer core. The device was designed to copy everything while leaving no trace of intrusion. If it worked, they would have complete intelligence about alien defenses. If it was detected, every human base would be discovered and destroyed. "Data transfer at 40%, the device whispered in her earpiece. "Estimated completion in 12 minutes. 12 minutes felt like hours as Maria watched alien technicians work at nearby stations. The Zephyrians moved with efficient precision, their forearms manipulating controls too complex for human hands. But they weren't paying attention to the shadows where a small human could hide. The device was at 80% when alarms began blaring throughout the complex. Maria's heart stopped as she saw alien guards rushing toward her position. Someone had detected the intrusion. "Ghost Team, you need to get out of there now," Jake's voice crackled through the radio. "Negative control. Data transfer at 90%. I can't leave without it." Energy beams lit up the tunnel as Zephyrian soldiers opened fire. Maria pressed herself deeper into the shadows, clutching the data device as percentage numbers climbed toward completion. 95%. 98%. A blast of energy struck the ice wall next to her head, sending sharp fragments into her face. But the device finally showed 100% and automatically disconnected from the alien computer. Maria ran through the tunnels as fast as her legs could carry her. Behind her, she could hear alien pursuit teams coordinating their search. They knew someone had infiltrated their most secure facility, and they wouldn't stop until the intruder was found. The stolen transport ship was hidden in a natural ice cave 2 kilometers from the communications center. Maria had to cross open, ground under the light of Jupiter's massive bulk hanging in the sky above. Every step might be her last if the aliens spotted her. She made it to the ship and began the startup sequence with shaking hands. The alien controls were complex, but she had practiced on similar vessels during training. The engines came online, just as searchlights began sweeping the area. "Control, this is Ghost Team. I have the data and I'm coming home." But as her ship lifted off from Europa's surface, 3 Zephyrian interceptors appeared on her sensors. The pursuit craft were faster and better armed than her stolen transport. They would catch her long before she reached the jump point. "Ghost Team, we're tracking multiple contacts closing on your position." Jake's voice was tense. "Can you evade them?" Maria looked at her fuel levels and weapon status. The transport had basic defensive systems, but nothing that could match military interceptors. She was outgunned and outnumbered with nowhere to run. "Negative, Control. But I'm uploading the data now in case I don't make it back." She transmitted everything the device had collected while flying evasive maneuvers around Europa's largest crater. The interceptors fired energy beams that turned chunks of ice into glowing vapor. One blast clipped her ship's wing, sending it spinning toward the moon's surface. Maria fought the controls and managed to crash land in a field of ice boulders. The impact knocked her unconscious, and when she woke up, alien soldiers were cutting through her ship's hull with plasma torches. "Got her," one of the aliens said in their clicking language. "Scan the ship for any intelligence devices." But they were too late. The data had already been transmitted to Jake's fleet, and Maria had destroyed the collection device before losing consciousness. She had completed her mission, even if it cost her life. The intelligence Maria had died to collect was beyond Jake's wildest hopes. Amy Collins studied the stolen data with growing excitement as she realized what they had captured. "Jake, this is incredible. We have complete fleet positions, patrol schedules, communication codes, everything. But most importantly, we have the location of the Nexus Prime for the next month." Jake looked at the tactical display showing Zephyrian ship movements. The alien fleet was gathering in Earth orbit for what their intercepted communications called a victory celebration. Hundreds of ships would be concentrated in one location, including their command vessel. "It's exactly what we need," he said. "When do they arrive at Earth?" "In 3 weeks. The Nexus Prime will be in the center of their formation, surrounded by escort ships, but predictably positioned. If we can break through their outer defenses, we'll have a clear shot at uploading the virus." The cost of this intelligence weighed heavily on Jake's mind. Maria Rodriguez had sacrificed herself to give them this opportunity. Dozens of other agents had died gathering information about alien weaknesses. Every piece of data in their computers was bought with human blood. "Send the tactical information to all resistance leaders," he ordered. "Tell them the final operation begins in 3 weeks. And send a message to Kate Miller. We need every ship ready for combat, even if they're not completely finished." On the occupied worlds, Carl Watson received the coded transmission with grim satisfaction. 3 years of planning and preparation were about to pay off. His army had grown to over 1,000 fighters spread across multiple continents. They had weapon stockpiles hidden in dozens of locations, and detailed plans for attacking every alien installation on the planet. "This is it," he told his battalion commanders. "In 3 weeks, we hit everything at once. When that alien fleet starts burning in orbit, every human on this world needs to be fighting for freedom." The resistance cells on other worlds received similar orders. Coordinated uprisings would begin simultaneously with the orbital assault, preventing the aliens from sending reinforcements to protect their command ship. It was an ambitious plan that required perfect timing and incredible courage. Amy Collins worked frantically to complete her virus program. The stolen intelligence had revealed new details about the Zephyrian AI system, allowing her to make the weapon even more effective. "I've added a delayed activation feature," she explained to Jake. "The virus will spread through their network for several minutes before activating. By the time they realize what's happening, it will be too late to stop it." "What kind of damage will it cause?" "Complete system failure across their entire fleet. Navigation, weapons, life support, everything will shut down or malfunction. But Jake, there's something else in this data. Something disturbing." Amy pulled up files that had been deeply encrypted in the alien databases. The information they contained changed everything about humanity's understanding of their enemies. The Zephyrians aren't evil conquerors. They're refugees running from something that destroyed their home galaxy. They attacked us because they thought it was the only way to survive. Jake studied the alien records showing images of devastated worlds and shattered fleets. Something called the Devourers had consumed an entire galaxy, leaving nothing but empty space behind. The Zephyrians had barely escaped with their lives. "Are you saying we're fighting the wrong enemy?" "I'm saying the situation is more complicated than we thought. But it doesn't change what we have to do. Our people are still enslaved, and billions are still dead. Whatever threat drove the Zephyrians here, we'll deal with it after we free humanity." Jake nodded grimly. The revelation about the Devourers was troubling, but it didn't excuse what the aliens had done to Earth and the colonies. Humanity had offered them no threat, yet they had chosen genocide over negotiation. "How long until the virus is ready?" "It's ready now. All we need is to get close enough to the Nexus Prime to upload it." Jake looked out at his assembled fleet through the observation window. 57 ships of various classes, crewed by the last free humans in the galaxy. It wasn't enough to match the Zephyrian fleet in open battle, but it might be enough to accomplish their mission. "Then we finish this. Send the final attack orders to all units. In 3 weeks, humanity takes back its home. At exactly 0300 hours, Terran Standard Time, Jake Morrison gave the order that would change the course of human history. All ships, jump to Earth system. Operation Vengeance is go. The USS Retribution led 56 other vessels out of hyperspace, at the edge of the Sol system. For the first time in 3 years, human warships had returned to their home. But Earth was no longer the blue jewel they remembered. The planet's surface was brown and scarred, its atmosphere thick with smoke from ongoing mining operations. "Target confirmed," reported Lieutenant Chen from the sensor station. "The Nexus Prime is in Earth orbit, surrounded by escort vessels. I count over 300 alien ships in defensive formation." Jake studied the tactical display with cold satisfaction. The Zephyrian fleet was arranged exactly as Maria Rodriguez's stolen intelligence had predicted. The massive command ship sat in the center of a sphere of escort vessels, confident in its invulnerability. Signal the fleet. Execute Alpha Strike. The human ships spread out in attack formation, their hybrid engines propelling them forward at speeds the aliens had never seen before. Kate Miller's engineering innovations were about to be tested in the crucible of real combat. The first salvos came from the Retribution's main batteries, plasma cannons charged with stolen alien technology, sent streams of superheated energy toward the nearest Zephyrian destroyer. The alien ship's shields flared and collapsed under the unexpected assault. "Direct hit!" Chen reported with excitement. "Their shields are down!" All across the battle zone, human ships opened fire with weapons designed specifically to counter Zephyrian technology. The aliens had grown complacent during 3 years of easy conquest. Their shields were calibrated to stop human weapons from before the war, not the hybrid systems that Jake's fleet now carried, but the aliens adapted quickly. Zephyrian ships began returning fire with devastating energy beams that could vaporize a human vessel in seconds. The USS Defender took a direct hit and exploded in a ball of plasma. Then the Liberty, Jake's old ship, was torn apart by multiple enemy strikes. "We're losing ships fast," Chen warned. "The aliens are adjusting their targeting to track our movements." Jake watched his carefully assembled fleet being torn apart and felt each loss like a physical blow. But he had known this would be a one-way mission for most of them. The only thing that mattered was getting close enough to the Nexus Prime to upload Amy's virus. In the fighter bays of the remaining human ships, Dan Foster led his squadron into the chaos of space combat. The young pilots had trained for this moment their entire adult lives, and they flew with a precision that amazed even their enemies. "Gold Squadron, form up on me," Dan ordered as his fighters swept past a burning Zephyrian cruiser. "We need to clear a path for the Retribution." Sarah Kim and the other pilots followed Dan through a maze of energy beams and explosive debris. Their small ships were too fast for the alien targeting systems to track effectively, allowing them to strike at weapon ports and shield generators with surgical precision. "I'm hit!" called out Pilot Martinez as his fighter spiraled out of control. "Engines are gone! Tell my family I fought well!" Martinez's ship crashed into a Zephyrian destroyer's bridge section, taking both vessels out of the battle. It was a trade the humans could barely afford, but every alien ship destroyed brought them closer to their goal. On the surface of Earth, Carl Watson watched the battle through stolen alien sensors while preparing his own attack. The orbital combat was providing the perfect distraction for the coordinated uprisings he had planned. "All units, begin the assault," he ordered his battalion commanders. "Every alien installation on this planet needs to be burning in the next hour." 3,000 human fighters emerged from hidden tunnels and secret bases across Earth's surface. They struck at communication arrays, weapon depots, and mining facilities with a fury built up over 3 years of slavery and suffering. The aliens had never expected their human slaves to organize such a coordinated rebellion. The Zephyrian garrison forces found themselves fighting desperate battles across multiple continents while their fleet was engaged in orbit. Many of the Alien soldiers had never faced serious resistance from humans and were unprepared for the ferocity of the attacks. Similar uprisings began on occupied worlds throughout the galaxy. The aliens suddenly faced rebellions on dozens of planets, while their main fleet was concentrated at Earth. Their command structure, so efficient at controlling a conquered population, began to collapse under the strain of fighting on multiple fronts. Back in space, Jake Morrison pushed the Retribution through the alien defensive formation toward the Nexus Prime. The massive command ship loomed ahead like a crystalline mountain, its weapon systems charging to destroy any vessel that came too close. "Amy, are you ready?" Jake called to the communications bay, where Dr. Collins was preparing her ultimate weapon. "The virus is loaded and ready for upload," Amy replied, her fingers dancing over the control interfaces. "I just need a clear data link to their main computer system." The Retribution shuddered as alien energy beams struck its hull. Kate Miller's shields held, but warning lights showed critical systems failing throughout the ship. They were running out of time. "Dan, I need those escort ships cleared away," Jake ordered over the fleet communications. "Copy that, sir." "Gold. Squadron. Full attack on the Nexus Prime's escorts. Clear a path for the flagship." The remaining human fighters threw themselves at the alien escort vessels with suicidal determination. They knew they were vastly outnumbered, but they also knew that this was humanity's only chance for freedom. Fighter after fighter was destroyed by alien defensive fire, but they accomplished their mission. The escort ships were forced to divide, their attention between the small, fast targets and the approaching human fleet. In that moment of confusion, the Retribution broke through their defensive line. "I have a link!" Amy shouted as her computers connected to the Nexus Prime's communication array. "Uploading the virus now." The data transfer took only seconds, but those seconds felt like hours as the massive alien ship's weapons turned toward the Retribution. Energy beams powerful enough to crack moons charged up in the command ship's main batteries. "Upload complete," Amy reported just as the alien weapons fired. Jake threw the ship into a desperate evasive maneuver, but the Nexus Prime's guns were too powerful and too accurate. The energy beams struck the Retribution's port side, tearing through armor and setting off secondary explosions throughout the ship. "Hull breach on decks 7 through 12, Kate Miller reported as damage control teams rushed to contain the fires. "We're venting atmosphere and losing power to the main engines." But Amy's virus was already spreading through the Zephyrian computer network like a digital plague. The Nexus Prime's artificial intelligence, designed to process vast amounts of information instantly, couldn't distinguish between legitimate data and the poisonous code now flooding its systems. The effect was immediate and catastrophic. Across the battlefield, Zephyrian ships began firing on each other as their targeting systems identified friendly vessels as enemies. Some ships shut down completely while others spun out of control as their navigation systems failed. The precisely coordinated alien formation dissolved into chaos as captains lost control of their own vessels. Ships that had been working together for years suddenly became deadly enemies, their weapons turned against former allies by corrupted computer systems. "It's working," Chen reported with amazement. "Their entire fleet is falling apart." Jake watched through the main view screen as the enemy formation collapsed. Zephyrian ships that moments before had been threatening to destroy his fleet were now destroying each other in a frenzy of misdirected fire. The Nexus Prime itself was not immune to the chaos. Its massive hull began to show internal explosions as corrupted systems overloaded and failed. The command ship that had controlled the conquest of humanity was tearing itself apart from within. "Amy, what exactly did your virus do to them?" Jake asked as he watched the alien fleet's destruction. "I turned their greatest strength into their greatest weakness," Amy replied with grim satisfaction. "Their AI was so efficient at controlling everything that when I corrupted it, the corruption spread to every system in their network. They're completely helpless now." The battle was turning into a rout as more Zephyrian ships succumbed to the virus. But even in victory, the cost to humanity was terrible. Of the 57 ships that had attacked Earth, only 23 were still functional. Hundreds of brave humans had died to win this moment of vengeance, but they had won. After 3 years of slavery and suffering, humanity had struck back at their oppressors and emerged victorious. The Zephyrian Empire's fleet was crippled, their command structure destroyed, and their hold on the galaxy broken. Jake Morrison stood on his damaged bridge and watched Earth's sky clear of alien ships for the first time in 3 years. The planet was free, and soon all the human worlds would follow. "Sir, we're receiving surrender requests from the remaining alien vessels," Chen reported. Jake considered his response carefully. These aliens had shown no mercy when they conquered humanity, but perhaps it was time for humans to be better than their enemies. Accept their surrenders, and signal the fleet to cease fire. The war is over. Dr. Amy Collins sat in the communications bay of the damaged USS Retribution, watching lines of code stream across her screen. Her virus had done more than destroy the Zephyrian fleet. It was now decoding their entire database, revealing secrets that would change everything humanity thought they knew about their enemies. "Jake, you need to see this," Amy called to the bridge. Her voice was quiet, but something in her tone made everyone stop what they were doing. Jake Morrison left his command chair and walked to Amy's station. Around them, damage control teams worked to repair the ship's critical systems. The smell of burnt electronics and venting atmosphere filled the air, but the Retribution was still flying. "What did you find?" Jake asked. Amy pulled up files that her virus had extracted from the dying Nexus Prime's computers. The alien text was automatically translated by the same program that had corrupted their systems. What it revealed was disturbing. "The Zephyrians didn't attack us because they were evil, Jake. They attacked us because they were terrified." The files showed images of a galaxy consumed by darkness. Worlds reduced to empty husks. Fleets of ships turned into floating graveyards. Something called the Devourers had systematically destroyed every form of life in the Zephyrians' home galaxy, leaving nothing but dead space behind. According to these records, the Devourers consume entire civilizations, Amy continued. They turn all organic and technological matter into more of themselves. The Zephyrians barely escaped with a fraction of their population. Jake studied the alien records with growing unease. The images showed creatures that defied description, biomechanical horrors that grew stronger with each world they consumed. The Zephyrian Empire had been running from these monsters when they found humanity. Are you saying they had good reasons for attacking us? I'm saying they thought it was either us or them. Their scientists calculated that the Devourers would reach this galaxy within 10 years. They believed the only way to survive was to unite all the species here under their control. The revelation was like a punch to the stomach. For 3 years, Jake had planned revenge against aliens he thought were mindless conquerors. Now he was learning they might have been desperate refugees trying to save themselves from an even greater threat. How long do we have before these Devourers arrive? Amy's face was pale as she showed him the calculations. According to the Zephyrian data, they're already on their way. The advanced scouts will reach our galaxy in less than 8 years. The victory celebration that should have been happening on the bridge suddenly felt premature. Humanity had won the battle against the Zephyrian Empire, but they had also destroyed the only force that might have been able to defend against the Devourers. "Sir, we're receiving a transmission from one of the surviving alien ships," Lieutenant Chen reported from the communications station. The main screen showed a Zephyrian commander, his 4 arms spread in what appeared to be a gesture of surrender. The alien's crystalline skin was cracked, and blue blood leaked from wounds on his face. But his eyes held intelligence and desperation. "Human Commander, I am Fleet Leader Zarthek of the Zephyrian Defense Force. I request permission to speak with you about matters of mutual survival." Jake considered the request. Everything in him wanted to refuse. These aliens had destroyed his civilization and enslaved his people. But Amy's discoveries suggested the situation was more complex than simple revenge. Put him through, Jake decided. Zarthek's image appeared on the screen, and he spoke in heavily accented English. "Commander, your victory is complete. Our fleet is crippled, our command structure destroyed. But there is something you must understand about why we came to your worlds. We've seen your records about the Devourers." Jake replied coldly. "That doesn't excuse what you did to Earth and the colonies." "No, it does not. We made a terrible choice, and billions of your people died because of it. But the threat that drove us here is still coming. In 8 years, creatures that consumed our entire galaxy will reach yours. Without preparation, all life in this galaxy will end." Amy leaned forward, her scientific curiosity overcoming her anger. "Tell us about these Devourers. How do they fight? What are their weaknesses?" Zarthek's expression grew even more grim. "They have no weaknesses that we discovered. They adapt to any weapon, absorb any technology, and convert all living matter into more of themselves. Our greatest fleets were destroyed in minutes. Our most advanced weapons were turned against us." Jake felt a chill run down his spine. The Zephyrian fleet that had conquered humanity so easily had been running from something that considered them easy prey. "What do you propose?" he asked. "An alliance. Your people have shown capabilities we never expected. The virus that destroyed. Our fleet demonstrates a type of warfare we never considered. Together, we might find a way to survive what is coming." The bridge fell silent as everyone considered the aliens' words. After 3 years of war and suffering, The idea of working with the Zephyrians seemed impossible, but the alternative might be the extinction of all life in the galaxy. "We'll need to discuss this with our leadership," Jake said finally. "In the meantime, your surviving ships will remain under guard." The transmission ended, leaving the human crew to contemplate an alliance with their former enemies. On the surface of Earth, similar conversations were happening as resistance leaders learned about the approaching threat. Carl Watson stood in the ruins of a Zephyrian mining facility, watching alien prisoners tend to their wounded. His fighters had achieved total victory, but the captured aliens weren't the bloodthirsty monsters he had expected. They seemed more like desperate refugees who had made terrible choices. "Sir, we've captured their local commander," one of Carl's lieutenants reported. "She's asking to speak with our leadership about something called the Devourers." Carl looked at the alien commander, a female Zephyrian with intricate crystal patterns covering her skin. Her 4 arms were raised in surrender, but her eyes held the same desperate intelligence that Jake had seen in Zarthek. "The creatures that destroyed our home are coming here," she said in broken English. "In 8 years, they will consume everything in this galaxy unless we work together to stop them." The message was the same across all the occupied worlds. Zephyrian commanders were surrendering to human forces and warning about a threat that made their own conquest seem insignificant by comparison. Back on the Retribution, Amy continued analyzing the alien databases for information about the Devourers. What she found was terrifying. The creatures weren't just conquerors. They were a force of nature that consumed entire galaxies to fuel their reproduction. "They're like a cosmic plague," she explained to Jake. "They start with a few scout ships, then multiply using the resources of the worlds they conquer. Within a few years, they have enough ships to overwhelm any defense. How many galaxies have they consumed? At least 12 that the Zephyrians knew about. They've been spreading across the universe for millions of years, leaving nothing but empty space behind them." Jake studied the tactical projections showing possible Devourer attack routes. No matter how he looked at it, the numbers were overwhelming. Even if humanity and the Zephyrians worked together, they would be facing an enemy that had consumed civilizations far more advanced than either of them. What would we need to have a chance against them? Amy pulled up technical specifications for Devourer ships and weapons. "They adapt to any technology they encounter, but they've never faced the combination of human tactics and Zephyrian engineering. If we could merge our approaches to warfare, we might develop something they haven't seen before." It was a slim hope, but it was better than facing extinction. Jake made a decision that would have seemed impossible just hours earlier. "Signal Fleet Leader Zarthek. Tell him we're willing to discuss terms for an alliance, but the negotiations will be conducted as equals, not as conquerors and conquered." The response came quickly. "Understood, Commander Morrison. My people are prepared to share all our knowledge about the Devourers and provide full reparations for the damage we caused. We only ask for the chance to work together for our mutual survival." Jake looked out at the stars where his homeworld orbited. Earth was free, humanity was no longer enslaved, and their enemies were defeated. But a greater threat was approaching that would test every alliance and challenge everything they thought they knew about survival. The war against the Zephyrians was over. The war for the galaxy was about to begin. The explosion that tore through the Nexus Prime lit up Earth's sky like a second sun. Jake Morrison watched from the bridge of the USS Retribution as the massive alien command ship broke apart in a cascade of brilliant detonations. Pieces of crystalline hull tumbled through space, carrying with them the dreams of an empire that had ruled the galaxy for 3 years. Nexus Prime is destroyed, Lieutenant Chen reported with satisfaction. Internal explosions are spreading throughout the ship. Their command structure is completely gone. All across the solar system, the remaining Zephyrian vessels were suffering similar fates. Amy's virus had spread through their entire network like digital fire, turning their own technology against them. Ships that had seemed invincible were now helpless victims of their own corrupted systems. "Sir, multiple alien vessels are attempting to retreat," the tactical officer called out. "But their navigation systems are sending them into asteroid fields and gas giant atmospheres." Jake nodded grimly. The Zephyrians were learning too late that complete dependence on artificial intelligence could be a fatal weakness. Their ships were flying blind, their weapons firing randomly, their life support systems failing one by one. On the surface of Earth, Carl Watson stood on a hill overlooking the capital city that had once been London. The skyline was different, now scarred by 3 years of alien occupation. But human flags were flying again, and the sound of freedom fighters cheering echoed across the devastated landscape. "Report from all sectors," Carl ordered his communications team. "How many alien installations have we secured?" 93% of their ground facilities are under our control," came the reply. "The remaining Zephyrian forces are requesting surrender. They're completely cut off from their fleet command." Carl looked up at the burning debris falling from orbit like metal rain. Each piece represented a small victory in humanity's impossible war against their conquerors. But he knew the real victory was in the faces of the people around him. After 3 years of slavery, humans were free again. Similar scenes were playing out on occupied worlds throughout the galaxy. The coordinated uprisings that had begun during the orbital battle were succeeding beyond anyone's wildest hopes. Without their fleet command and AI systems, the Zephyrian occupation forces were collapsing everywhere. Back in space, the human fleet was regrouping around the debris field that had once been the enemy's greatest warship. Of the 57 vessels that had begun the attack, only 19 were still capable of independent operation. The cost of victory had been enormous, but it was a price the survivors were willing to pay. "Amy, what's the status of the virus?" Jake asked. Dr. Amy Collins looked up from her screens with exhaustion and triumph mixed on her face. "It's spreading faster than I expected. Every Zephyrian computer system in the galaxy is being affected. But Jake, there's something else. The virus is also decoding their databases and transmitting the information back to us." "What kind of information?" "Everything. Their technology, their history, their knowledge about threats from outside the galaxy. We're getting access to scientific data that's centuries ahead of our own." Jake felt a mix of satisfaction and unease. The victory was complete. But the information Amy was uncovering suggested that humanity's problems were far from over. The first surrender came from a Zephyrian destroyer that had lost all power and was drifting helplessly near Mars. Its captain, a four-armed alien named Kethvar, transmitted a message in halting English. "Human fleet, we surrender unconditionally. Our ship is disabled and our crew is dying. We request permission to abandon ship and seek refuge." Jake considered the request. These aliens had shown no mercy when they conquered humanity, killing billions of innocent people. Part of him wanted to let them die in the cold vacuum of space, but humans had always prided themselves on being better than their enemies. Permission. Granted. Abandon ship and prepare to be taken into custody. Over the next several hours, similar scenes played out across the solar system. Zephyrian crews abandoned their crippled vessels and surrendered to the human forces they had once enslaved. Some were wounded, others were terrified, but all of them seemed resigned to whatever fate awaited them. The alien prisoners were a strange sight. Up close, the Zephyrians looked less like the monsters that had haunted human nightmares and more like desperate refugees. Their crystalline skin was beautiful in its own way, and their four-armed bodies moved with a grace that spoke of evolution, on a world very different from Earth. "Sir, we're detecting a massive energy surge from the Nexus Prime's wreckage," Chen reported urgently. "Something's still active in there." Jake turned his attention back to the debris field. Deep within the twisted remains of the command ship, lights were still flickering. As they watched, a section of the hull opened and a small vessel emerged. "It's an escape pod," the tactical officer confirmed. "Single occupant, moving toward our position." The pod was clearly damaged, its crystalline hull cracked and leaking atmosphere. Whoever was inside wouldn't survive much longer without help. "Bring it aboard," Jake ordered, "but keep security teams ready." The escape pod was brought into the Retribution's shuttle bay, where medical teams and armed guards waited. When the hatch opened, a single Zephyrian emerged. This one was different from the others, with more elaborate crystal patterns covering his skin and what appeared to be command insignia on his damaged uniform. "I am Fleet Leader Zarthek, Supreme Commander of the Zephyrian Defense Force," the alien said in perfect English. "I request an audience with your leader." Jake arrived in the shuttle bay to find the alien commander standing proudly despite obvious injuries. Blue blood leaked from cracks in his crystalline skin, and one of his four arms hung uselessly at his side. But his eyes held intelligence, and something that looked like respect. "I am Commander Morrison of the Terran Defense Fleet. Your empire is defeated, your fleet is destroyed. What do you want?" Zarthek straightened despite his pain. "I want to save both our species from extinction." The words hung in the air like a challenge. Jake had expected pleas for mercy or attempts at negotiation. He hadn't expected a warning about mutual destruction. "Explain." "Commander Morrison, your victory over us is complete and well-deserved. We invaded your worlds, enslaved your people, and killed billions of innocents. We thought it was necessary for our survival, but we were wrong. Now both our species face a threat that makes our war seem insignificant." Amy Collins had arrived during the conversation, drawn by reports of the alien commander's surrender. She stepped forward with her tablet showing the decoded Zephyrian databases. "The Devourers," she said quietly. You're talking about the creatures that destroyed your home galaxy. Zarthek's eyes widened in surprise. You have accessed our records? How is that possible? The same virus that destroyed your fleet also gave us access to your databases. We know about the threat that drove you here. But that doesn't excuse what you did to humanity. No, it does not, Zarthek agreed. But it does mean that unless we work together, both our species will be extinct. Within a decade, Jake studied the alien commander, trying to read intentions in features that were completely foreign to human experience. The Zephyrian Empire had seemed invincible just hours ago. Now their leader was standing in a human shuttle bay asking for an alliance. What exactly are you proposing? A merger of our technologies and tactics. Your people have demonstrated capabilities we never imagined. The virus that defeated us shows a type of warfare we never considered. Combined with our advanced technology and knowledge of the devourer threat, we might have a chance of survival. The proposal was audacious and disturbing. After 3 years of war and suffering, the idea of working with the Zephyrians seemed impossible. But the alternative, according to their own records, was the extinction of all life in the galaxy. We'll need time to consider this, Jake said finally. In the meantime, you and your surviving people will be held as prisoners of Va. Understood. But, Commander, time is not a luxury we possess. The Devourers are already on their way to this galaxy. Every day we delay in preparing our defenses brings us closer to certain death. As Zarthek was led away by security teams, Jake found himself facing the most difficult decision of his life. Humanity had finally achieved victory over their conquerors, but that victory might have doomed them all to face an even greater threat alone. Amy pulled up long-range sensor data on her tablet. Jake, I've been analyzing the Zephyrian records about Devourer movement patterns. If their calculations are correct, we have less than 8 years before the advanced scouts reach our galaxy. Jake looked out at the stars where Earth shone like a blue jewel among the debris of the alien fleet. His people were free, their enemies were defeated, and their homeworld was safe. But freedom might be temporary if the Zephyrians were telling the truth about what was coming. Keep analyzing their data, he told Amy, and prepare a full report for Earth Command. They need to know that the war we just won might have been the easy part. The Battle of Sol was over, but the real fight for survival was just beginning. 6 months after the Battle of Sol, Admiral Jake Morrison stood in the observation deck of the newly constructed space station orbiting Mars. The red planet stretched below him, its surface dotted with construction sites where humans and Zephyrians worked side by side. It was a sight he never thought he would see. The treaty negotiations had taken 3 months of careful diplomacy. Fleet leader Zarthek had kept his word about sharing everything the Zephyrians knew about the Devourer threat. The information was terrifying, but necessary. Humanity finally understood what they were facing. Admiral Morrison, the Joint Council is ready for your briefing, announced Captain Lisa Barnes, who had been promoted to serve as his aide. Jake nodded and walked toward the main conference room. Inside, representatives from both species sat around a circular table. The sight still felt strange after 3 years of war, but everyone understood that survival required cooperation. Dr. Amy Collins stood at the front of the room, her presentation screen showing tactical data about the approaching threat. Her analysis of the Zephyrian databases had revealed the full scope of the Devourer menace. Based on the alien records, we have 7 years and 4 months before the first Devourer scouts reach our galaxy, Amy began. These creatures have consumed at least 12 other galaxies, growing stronger with each conquest. Jake watched the faces around the table as Amy explained how the Devourers operated. They weren't just conquerors. They were a force of nature that consumed entire civilizations to fuel their reproduction. Each galaxy they destroyed made them more powerful. The Zephyrian Empire tried to fight them for 50 years, Amy continued. They used every weapon and tactic they could imagine, but nothing worked. The Devourers adapt to any technology and convert all matter into more of themselves. Zarthek, sitting across from Jake, spoke up with his accented English. Our greatest fleets were destroyed in minutes. Our most fortified worlds were consumed in days. We barely escaped with a fraction of our population. Carl Watson, now representing the Earth Resistance Forces, leaned forward in his chair. So what makes you think we can do better? Because you fight differently than we do, Zarthek replied. Your victory over our fleet proved that. We relied on superior technology and overwhelming force. You used creativity and unconventional tactics. Amy pulled up technical specifications for the hybrid ships being constructed in the orbital shipyards. We're combining human strategic thinking with Zephyrian technology to create something entirely new. Ships that can adapt and change tactics in real time. The USS Phoenix was the first example of this new approach. The massive vessel combined the best elements of both civilizations' technologies. Human creativity and adaptability merged with Zephyrian engineering and materials science. Engineer Kate Miller had spent months working with alien scientists to develop the ship's systems. The Phoenix can reconfigure its weapons and shields during combat, she explained. If the Devourers adapt to one type of attack, we can switch to something completely different. Jake studied the ship's specifications with approval. The Phoenix was more than a warship. It was a symbol of what two former enemies could accomplish when they worked together. But he knew one ship, no matter how advanced, wouldn't be enough. How many vessels can we build in 7 years? He asked. With the combined industrial capacity of both species, maybe 300 ships of various classes, Kate replied. The Zephyrians are providing raw materials and manufacturing techniques, while humans are contributing tactical innovations and crew training. It was an impressive number, but still tiny compared to the fleets the Devourers could deploy. According to the alien records, the enemy could field thousands of ships within months of reaching a new galaxy. We need more than ships, Amy said, pulling up her analysis of Devourer weaknesses. We need to find something they've never encountered before, something they can't adapt to. Jake had been thinking about this problem for months. The Devourers' strength came from their ability to learn and adapt from every species they consumed. But that might also be their weakness. What if we could turn their adaptation ability against them? He suggested. Create something that becomes more dangerous the more they try to understand it? Amy's eyes lit up with understanding. A viral attack, but not just digital. Something that affects their biological systems, too. They absorb technology and organic matter, but what if that absorption carried a hidden poison? The idea was ambitious and dangerous. They would need to create weapons that could function on multiple levels, attacking both the Devourer's technology and their biology simultaneously. It would require perfect cooperation between human and Zephyrian scientists. The risk is enormous, Zarthek warned. If we fail, both our species will be extinct within a generation. If we don't try, we'll be extinct anyway, Jake replied. At least this gives us a chance. The meeting continued for hours as they planned humanity's greatest challenge. Defense fleets would be positioned at the galaxy's edge to provide early warning. Research stations would work around the clock to develop new weapons. Most importantly, the two species would need to learn to fight as one. On the surface of Earth, similar cooperation was taking place. Former Resistance leader Carl Watson now commanded joint human-Zephyrian ground forces. The aliens' advanced technology was helping to rebuild the worlds they had damaged, while human tactical expertise was teaching them new ways to think about warfare. It's strange working with them, Carl admitted to Jake during one of their regular communications. 3 years ago, I would have killed any Zephyrian I saw. Now some of them are my closest advisors. The transformation wasn't easy for either species. Humans struggled to forgive the aliens who had enslaved them. Zephyrians had to accept that their former enemies were now their equals and partners. But the threat of total extinction was a powerful motivator for cooperation. Amy Collins spent her days working in joint research facilities where human creativity merged with alien science. The weapons they were developing pushed the boundaries of both civilizations' understanding. Viral programs that could infect organic tissue, energy weapons that adapted to their targets, shield systems that learned from every attack. We're creating things that shouldn't be possible, she told Jake during one of their progress meetings. But then again, we're facing an enemy that shouldn't exist. The construction of the defense fleet proceeded at an incredible pace. Shipyards that had taken years to build now operated continuously, producing vessels that combined the best of both technologies. Human crews trained alongside Zephyrian officers, learning to operate systems beyond their previous imagination. Lieutenant Dan Foster had been promoted to wing commander of the Joint Fighter Squadrons. His pilots now flew ships that could change their configuration during combat, adapting to whatever threats they faced. The young humans who had never seen Earth before its conquest were now preparing to defend an entire galaxy. They're good, Dan reported about his Zephyrian pilots. Different from us, but good. They think in mathematical patterns while we think in three-dimensional space. Together, we're developing tactics neither species could have imagined alone. As the months passed, long-range sensors began detecting unusual signatures at the galaxy's edge. The Devourers were still years away, but their advanced scouts were starting to probe the outer systems. The enemy was coming, and time was running out. Jake stood on the bridge of the USS Phoenix as the massive ship completed its first combat trials. The vessel represented everything they had learned about cooperation and innovation, human determination merged with Zephyrian technology, creating something greater than either species could achieve alone. Admiral, we're receiving reports from the outer sensor arrays, Communications Officer Tony Reeves announced. Multiple unknown contacts detected at the galaxy's edge. They match the signatures from the Zephyrian databases. Jake felt his stomach tighten. The moment they had been preparing for was approaching faster than expected. But as he looked around the bridge at the mixed human and Zephyrian crew, he felt something he hadn't experienced since before the conquest. Hope. Send word to all defense. Fleets, he ordered. The Devourers have arrived. All units are to implement the Phoenix Protocol immediately. The Phoenix Protocol was their master plan for defending the galaxy. It combined every lesson learned from the war against the Zephyrians with everything they knew about the approaching threat. Human creativity and adaptability would merge with Zephyrian technology and knowledge, creating a defense that had never existed before. Beside him, Fleet Leader Zarthek studied the tactical displays with the same intensity he had once focused on conquering humanity. Admiral Morrison, our species have learned to work together in an incredibly short time. Perhaps that is our greatest weapon against an enemy that has consumed civilizations far older than either of ours. Jake nodded as he watched the defense fleets move into position throughout the galaxy. Hundreds of ships crewed by former enemies who had become allies. Weapons that shouldn't exist, being prepared to fight creatures that defied natural law. A desperate alliance between two species that had nearly destroyed each other. Maybe our greatest strength is that we almost lost everything, Jake said quietly. We know what it means to face impossible odds and survive. The war for the galaxy was about to be